here's one that comes in from Linda, who says, is it okay to lead a Bible study among friends if it's just private and not connected to a church? Good question, and I want us to think about this. If you ask the question, you can spin this question several different directions. And if you ask the question just saying, is it okay for friends to get to study the Bible together? Well, it sounds perfectly different, doesn't it? Can we get together and can we study the Bible? Well, of course you can get together and you can study the Bible. But I want us to look at the question and actually give it some serious thought. Is it okay to lead a Bible study among friends if it's private and not connected to a church? Well, when it gets into formal Bible study, there really are some issues. One of the biggest issues I would look at, and I would consider, I'm speaking this morning, I'll speak this as the pastor of a local church, and have been for 25 years now. And I would want to know, first of all, is this a Bible study or a rebellion study? You see, I've seen rebellion studies before under the guise of Bible study. And I do think that we have to be very careful not to fool ourselves into thinking, I just want to have Bible study. When what we really are saying is, I want to stick it to him. I want to get people together and show how much power I have and show how much authority I have. And I doubt that that's Linda's agenda here in asking the question, but I've seen the agenda around. And so if it is strongly against your pastor or your Sunday school teacher, and that's really what's at the bottom of it all, then I'd be very careful about that. Now, if you've had a Bible study among friends for years, and this is not the issue, it's just continuing, even if you become disgruntled with your pastor at some point or another, then that may be very different. So I'd want to know, is it a Bible study or is it a rebellion study? I would want to know, is it an agenda study or a Bible study? By agenda study, I mean, there are people who get together and say, there's not enough Calvinists in the world. I want to make more Calvinists, and so I'm going to get together and have this because my church needs Calvinists. Or maybe you say, my church needs dispensationalists. Whatever the agenda is, I think that other than making disciples, studying the Bible for some other agenda is always going to have a bad root in it. And you know what happens when you have a bad root in the plant? It ends up with some bad fruit. So then I'd ask another question. I said, well, who's in this Bible study? Is it people from your neighborhood? If it's people from your neighborhood, I think it's a wonderful thing to say, hey, let's, we're neighbors. Let's study the Bible on Thursday mornings. Let's get together and have a study. Or is it friends from work that gather together, maybe over lunch hour, and they have a Bible study? If it's a group of people, however, all from the same church, I think then this is where we have to think of it. A group of people all from the same church decide we're going to have a Bible study. Now, if that's the case, I think it's best to be under at least the permission of your church, if not under the authority of your church. Otherwise, you can cause some division within your church, and I'm sure that you don't want to use Bible study in order to cause division. Now, I know that there is a lot of sickness in churches out there, and some of you may be to the point where you have to withdraw from your church then because of the sickness. There really, as you think about this question, is it okay to have a Bible study among friends if it's private and not connected to the church? There are a multitude of Bible studies out there. In fact, I lead a Thursday night Bible study. There are some people, we are online, there are 2 or 3 people maybe that gather from a church in the same living room and they have the Bible study. There are families that gather together, whatever it may be. And so my Bible study, in a sense, is a Bible study among friends outside of the church. And there are things like Bible study fellowship and precepts and other Bible study groups that meet in the community that are not connected to the local church. Most pastors don't care about these things. But if you're in a church and the pastor does care, I do think that out of courtesy, if you're regular in attendance or if you're a member in that church, you really ought to contact your pastor at least to let him know you'll be attending the Bible study or going to the Bible study. Now, You might say, well, my pastor, he doesn't take phone calls. I can't talk to my pastor. In that case, I would say you don't have a pastor, so it really doesn't matter. You have a CEO that is a spokesman for the organization, and he stands up and gives a speech on Sunday morning, but a pastor is going to take your phone call and going to deal with this issue. So is it okay to lead a Bible study among friends if it's not connected to the church? I want to say that's too difficult a question just to give a blanket answer. If you're doing it to stick it to the pastor or the Sunday school teacher, some kind of rebellion kind of agenda, then I'd say, no, that's not okay, really, because of the rebellion issues. Or if you're doing it to say, I want to create Calvinists or I want to create dispensationalists in order to change this church, but you're not the pastor, then I'd say that is going to be problematic. But if you're saying, my friends and I, we get together and we talk about other things and we do other things and we'd like to talk about the Bible and we just sort of organize in order to do that, I think that's fine. By the way, I might say that I've got an article on our website, randywhiteministries.org, about how to start a home Bible study, and it speaks to some of these issues about having some authority somewhere eventually, because what can happen in a Bible study is a Bible study can grow sometimes. It doesn't always, but it can grow sometimes, maybe even to a church, and at some point you cannot just ordain yourself the pastor of that little church, and so there has to be some kind of authority that is taking place in there. So I would take that slowly, and especially just look at the heart to make sure there's not a sense of rebellion that is taking place.